Alright, here's the TRF chassis out of the Unknown Soldier, and the first two problems we need to deal with are obviously the power cord and this ballast tube. It technically needs to be replaced, but I might try to repair it to where it'll work long enough to either resurrect this thing or come up with a more suitable replacement for the ballast tube. You can see the resistance element is broken loose, and that's nothing more than nichrome wire wound on this heat resistant mica. And problem number 3 is our tuning condenser is very stiff. Let's see if we can get it freed up a little bit, and then we'll tackle the other problems. Now, I've cleaned it and lubricated it, and that's about as good as it's going to get. It's still kind of tight, but might have been that way to begin with. Let's take a little break here. United Package Smashers just dropped this off, and somehow I have a feeling the outcome is not going to be very good. Let's open it up and see if the outcome is good, or am I going to be getting on there and demanding a refund from somebody. I already hear stuff rattling around, and you can tell they went all out with the tape job here. Looks like they used recycled packing tape. We have some crumpled up newspaper here. We have a very little bit of bubble wrap stuff down in the side. I don't know what they think that's going to do to help our situation. And we have a radio, and a tube just fell off of it, and 2 knobs are missing. As you can tell, they went all out on packing material. Not. Here's the tube that was missing, a General Electric 6F6. There are the 2 knobs that fell off. Let's see what else got damaged, if anything. And a 5W4 was rolling around inside. And the power transformer is loose on the chassis. If a bolt can be loosened, UPS can figure out a way to loosen it. And here's the front. Doesn't look like it's damaged or anything. I believe Shango did one of these a year or 2 back, and it was a pretty good performing radio from what I remember. The seller claims it played, but they didn't say when it played. Maybe they meant 50 or 60 years ago. With this power cord, I hope they didn't plug it in. But looks like the inner part of the power cord is also insulated, so maybe that's still intact enough where it didn't short and blow up something. But I don't know. I kind of have an idea that this don't play. Okay, I found places in that old cord that was obviously shorting together, so I figure there's no way they plugged this in. If they did, it tripped the circuit breaker in their house. So I stripped it back enough to where it's not touching. I wired an incandescent bulb in series with the line, and we're going to bring it up slowly. And if there's any short, this bulb will take the brunt of it. So here we go. Alright, we're at about 60 volts. Transformer's humming in the radio, no excessive current draw. Hearing filter hum. Alright, we're at 120 volts. The bulb is just barely lighting. We have filter hum, and it does pick up a station, so I suppose I can give her the benefit of the doubt. If she was able to plug it in without that cord shorting out, which would have been miraculous, then I suppose she would have picked up something. Okay, that's a tone control. For years, as you heard the pillows back
factory now manufactures face masks for healthcare workers all over America. This is the kind of guy, frankly, that Mike Lindell is. Turn to me. Give myself fun.
Alright, unshorting the antenna wire from the ground wire seemed to help a good bit.
It's especially particular with the elderly. They still walk right up past me.
John Lynch had one heck. Who's had that?
Well, I'd say this thing's pretty sensitive to be unserviced and picking up all the local stations with basically no antenna on it. Okay, that's about enough. We'll turn it off before y'all have a heart attack from me running an 85-year-old radio with obviously bad filter capacitors in it. Alright, we'll now get back to the unknown soldier. Okay, I didn't have very good luck fixing that ballast tube that had burned open. So we just have a 200 ohm 25 watt resistor in its place. The original ballast tube had a tap for the pilot light, and I just have that jumped. I actually calculated, I believe it was about 170 ohms, but 200 should work, just so the filaments get hot enough to heat the cathodes to the point of producing electrons. That's all we care about. Let's flip it on and see if we have any continuity across here. And we do. So we know the filament circuit's good. Alright, let's bring it up slowly and see what happens. Alright, I'm getting about 70 volts B plus with reduced line voltage. We have plate and screen and cathode voltages on the audio output tube, a faint hum in the speaker, but no evidence of audio amplification. We have about 8 volts on the control grid of the output tube with respect to cathodes, so we know that cap is leaky. Alright, with that cap disconnected, I'm getting a little buzz at the control grid, so yeah, that cap's bad, and our B plus went up too when we disconnected that, so let's put a proper capacitor in its place. Alright, we replaced that coupling cap, and now we have this. Alright, we have a little bit of reception. And some oscillation. Okay, looking at what capacitors we have this across the line capacitor, which I disconnected and I jumped it out, and no cure. We have this capacitor right here that's the plate bypass capacitor. Yes, that can open and cause oscillation to occur in the audio output stage, although I don't think that's where the oscillation is coming from. And then we have this cathode bypass capacitor on the RF amplifier tube, and bypassing that didn't help. And then we have these two hacked-in filter capacitors. This one's running a tad bit warm here. And then here's the original can, that filter can block, or whatever you want to call it. It looks like one section is still connected here. Alright, this filter, the one that was getting slightly warm, it has good ESR. But this other filter has nothing. It's wide open.
Which area you
Alright, I bypassed the dead filter and it took care of the oscillation.
Yeah, and I think Phil just wore out of it. So I had this thing, Emily ministers, and he always viewed sort of a congregation, and he just felt your
without
congregation
with
7 years, and even after 95, 96, as
stupid clip leads, it won't even work. Now, generally speaking, an electrolytic filter capacitor doesn't make a good RF bypass because of their high power factor, but I have seen times where one would open up and cause oscillation and motorboating like what we were having with this radio. This is a slop job. Let me fix this and clean it up right, and then we'll go from there. There's not that much more to do to this. Alright, here's the input filter off of the rectifier cathode that was still working. It's supposed to be 8 microfarad. It reads 18. And here's the output filter, the one that we know is open, and the meter says the same thing. It's an Aerovox Dandy. Now it's an Aerovox Open. And this filter choke also looks like a replacement. It's only held in place by one bolt, and the other end is just dangling there. I have a hard time believing that the factory would have done something like that, so I think what I'm going to do is drill out the rivets holding this original cap block in, and that'll give us plenty of room to put what needs to be put in here. And then we'll just go from there. Okay, we have the filter block dismounted, and we have 6 wires here that are still intact and 1 wire that's been cut for a total of 7, but only 2 filters jumped out, so I don't know what else is in this block. Obviously I can't look up a schematic because I have no idea who made this, and we know any kind of markings on this block, if there ever were any in the first place, are long gone, and whatever's in it is probably dried up and expired by now. So we're just going to have to make an educated guess by tracing these wires out and seeing where they go. I wouldn't be surprised if 2 of the sections are the electrolytic filters for the power supply, and the others are probably lower valued bypass capacitors or some such thing. Alright, these 2 black ones are ground, soldered to the chassis. This one here, that's our output filter. Alright, this one looks like the cathode bypass capacitor for the detector tube. Probably a low value electrolytic. Okay, where were we? This wire connects to the screen grid of the detector tube as well as the cathode of the output tube. And this other wire comes back to one of the cathodes of the rectifier tube. Now let me explain this to you. This rectifier tube is actually 2 diodes in one, and it was done that way where you could either wire it as a full wave rectifier or wire it as a voltage doubler. Most of these types of sets just had the 2 plates and the 2 wired together and the 2 cathodes wired together for a conventional half wave rectifier. Well, this one appears to be doing it a little bit different. This is our 2 plates wired together. This is one of our cathodes supplying B+ voltage to the radio, and this other cathode seems to only be providing voltage to the speaker field coil. Normally they would use the field coil as a choke, but in this situation they're using this as a choke. They have a separate filter choke. So coming off of here, we go to the speaker field coil, and the other end of the coil connects to ground, and this is our filter capacitor for the field coil. So I've never seen it quite done that way, but I guess whatever works for you. Okay, this speaker field coil filter capacitor reads 6 microfarads. I'm sure it's weak, so I'll probably just put a 10 in its place. Alright, the detector cathode cap is reading 1.2. I'll probably use a film cap there. I'm sure I have one about 2 microfarad we can stick in there. Alright, I'll replace the capacitors, and it's and it's doing pretty good, actually.
A young age, and so my car lease was just...
Like with other TRFs of this nature, it's not very selective, so 1390 just takes over the top half of the dial. And here we go. I guess I did pretty good on that educated capacitor guessing, because it seems to be working. And that nice open space in the center we can use for our filament dropping whatever, whether I go with a capacitor or a resistor.
We promised you tools.
Alright, I have it back together. I need to order a ballast tube. Right now I have something kludged into place to make it work, which I'll show you in just a minute, so you can give me my Hack Repair of the Year award.
Something we've never done in 30 years. We also put 40 best-selling books of ours, audiobooks, ebooks.
Now at night this thing will pick up some of the more powerful distant stations, but sets like this are generally not considered a DX machine. They're local reception only, and they're not very selective. It's nothing with the radio, it's just the way these little cheap 4-tube TRF circuits are. These were a Depression era radio, probably cost $7.99 whenever they were new, and they weren't meant for spectacular performance.
Fire. They also drafted Patrick Queen, J.K. Dobbins, and oh yeah, by the way, they have the reigning MVP in Lamar Jackson.
I think that's WWL out of New Orleans.
In the AFC. I don't know if I'm ready to say they're better than the Chiefs.
That's local.
Danielle is in Florida. Hi, Danielle. Welcome to the Dave Ramsey Show.
Hi, Dave and John. How are you?
Great. How can we help? Good.
Now what is it doing? Gonna mess up? Alright, here's my entry for the Hack Repair of the Year award. Not safe by any sense of the word, but at least will allow the radio to play until I get the correct ballast tube to plug into here. Yes, I could have just mounted a power resistor to the chassis back here somewhere, but you know, I can get a ballast tube for about what it's going to cost me to get the correct power resistors to put in here, so I might as well just fix it back like it originally was. Oh yes, and I was digging around and I found this cloth power cord. This is newer production stuff. I probably had it about 15 years, and every once in a while I'll get a wild hair and use it. So I decided to replace the ugly white power cord that was cut off of an old hairdryer with some period correct looking cloth cord, and I found this old plug and attached it to our cord, and yeah, that looks period correct. Okay, I had to go back in and tweak these trimmers on the tuning condenser. They were a little off. And sometimes you just have to do this by trial and error. Get it to the point where it doesn't squeal, but at the same time gives the best sensitivity.
You play games, but maybe it's a point where not even have to go to Philadelphia. Hey, guess what?
real world, right?
Simply call one of our new Ballast San Antonio locations and speak to the concierge.
That's 1200 WOAI, I believe.
Recommend a suit that fits your unique foot shape.
Later, that's just happening in the eye to the left.
Can help. To learn more about suicide, visit save.org. That's SAVE.org. People join Walk MS to raise awareness and fun that change the world for
And
everyone.
this thing's still squealing a bit whenever I turn it wide open, but
Bring communities together.
like I said, I'm about to the point I'm not worried about this. This thing's kind of beat up and banged up anyway.
Because these ships, these submarines can stay out for virtually forever, and people can't. They split the time, and either the blue team or the gold team may be out.
Eric at home after this. It's the JR Sport Brief Show. I'm rapping with you on CBS Sports Radio. The one person in life that's always been in your corner is
WWAL.
From guiding you through life's mishaps to offering real-world advice and a shoulder to lean on.
WSM coming in kind of faint.
Can I blink again?
You sure can.
I don't know what we're going to do about this busted grill work. I'm not a woodworker.
Liberty Mutual.
My father was the woodworker, but he's been gone for a long time, so...
Check it out, Limo. Got a brand new motorcycle jacket and
I'm sure somebody that was good with woodworking could fix this right up and nobody'd ever know the difference, but I'm not the one. Okay, it's a new day. I came back down here and was going to touch the alignment up, and this radio is basically dead this morning. All I'm getting on it is one gospel station, the very overmodulated one. So we got to figure out what took a dump in this. So here's our RF stage, our detector stage, our output stage, and of course our rectifier. Well, we know the rectifier is probably okay because it's playing, so it's obviously producing B+ voltage. Here's the detector stage. I put my finger on the grid cap and it gets a little louder, and I get some more stations coming in on top of it. So let's check our voltages on the RF amplifier tube. Alright, our B+ voltage feeding all of this is 130 volts. Okay, let's move to our plate, the RF amplifier tube. I've got 130 volts there. Let's move to the screen grid. I've got 130 volts there. The cathode and suppressor grid are tied together. Let's see what we got there. Absolutely nothing. Well, the fact that we have full B+ on this tube and nothing on the cathode leads me to believe this tube is not conducting, or else an associated component with the tube is defective, and I don't really think that's the case. And I touch the grid cap, nothing happens. I hold my hand on the grid cap connection, get a little signal, but nothing through the tube.
and I've gone off in the deep end or kept it to mine.
So this stage is dead. Let me go see if I can find a tube. And this tube doesn't even appear to be lighting up, which is weird. You pull it and see what... Alright, here we go. Well, I pulled the tube and that broke the... You can see with the tube out and me holding my hand on the grid cap of the detector, I still get some audio while the other tubes are cooling down. So this is a 6D6. Let's go see if I can find... Okay, the problem, unfortunately, may actually be with the antenna coil. I don't know how this all got... You can see how sloppy this is. Well, I just read the continuity of the primary winding, and there is none. And if that's open, that can cause the tube not to conduct, because that's also in the cathode circuit of the tube. So I'll take this out, try to see where the wire is broken, see if I can repair it, and then go from there. If I can't repair it, I don't know what we'll do. I'm starting to see now why that person put all those radios for sale on eBay with only one picture per radio and not much of a description. It was junk they had that they gave up on, so they were just wanting to pass it off onto somebody else. Okay, maybe the coil's not bad. Between the antenna wire and the coil itself, there's this capacitor that's buried down in here. Its purpose is to isolate the antenna from the chassis. No, I'm not going to dig it out. If I did, I'd probably ruin the coil, but it appears that the coil windings have continuity. So now we're back to finding a tube and seeing what happens. Alright, here's another 6D6, and I get something when I touch the grid cap, but I need to redo the alignment on here. But first, let's put the shield back on like it's supposed to be. Alright, let's check our cathode voltage of the RF tube. Now we have 10 volts on it, which will vary based on our volume control.
Start your journey to better health today by calling 1-800-246-8751
Maximum is 4 volts.
Or by going to balancenature.com and make sure to receive the special radio offer by using discount code MikeG.
Plate voltage 122. So yeah, when the tube conducts, you can see what happens. You have cathode voltage and you have lower plate voltage. Okay, one thing I discovered is this coil winding that's loose.
Facebook and YouTube who are taking things down.
If you move it up,
You're wrong.
the gain gets lower.
All right.
Hey, Mike, they're treating this just like global warming. Give us a couple more weeks, then 2 weeks goes by. Give us a couple more weeks. Global warming. 10 years, the world's going to end. And it doesn't. Give us 10 more years.
Move it down and the gain gets better.
It's a perfect point.
I'm just going to have to glue that in place.
That's declared.
And if I turn it too high, we get too much signal and it starts oscillating.
If you push back, it's done better than ever with carbon emissions. We're working hard on anything.
And given this coil is messed up, this is never going to be 100% right. I'm just going to have to align it the best I can and be done with it. Some spray adhesive would probably be better for this, but I don't have any of that here, so we're just going to use some Elmer's glue to hold that winding in place. And of course we'll let it dry thoroughly before we power it up, because I know that stuff is conductive in its liquid state. So let's let it dry and we'll give it a test and hopefully it'll be okay and we can slide it back together. Alright, my glue has dried on the coil, and I tweaked the trimmers on the tuning condenser, and it seems to be working pretty good.
So let's all stay inside, social distance, and wash our hands, because the taste of sports is what we all need. And this is what happens when you connect.
And we can now get 1450 if I turn it wide open, but
Or buy something with your smartphone.
1390
Your
still bleeds over on it.
all over the
And this resistor, it's not gold anymore, it's kind of silver from it getting so hot in the couple hours that I've had it on. Technically, these resistors are meant to be mounted to a chassis, and the chassis serve as a heat sink, so either I'm going to have to do that or just order the correct ballast tube for this and do it that way. Here's an unused one. Here's the christened one, so you can tell the color change there. Okay, I've changed my mind since last night. I decided not to order a ballast tube, and the reason for that is I don't want to spend any more money on this radio that looks kind of beat up and abused anyway. I decided that we're going to get this thing going with what we have on hand, whatever it takes. So we have our 200 ohm main dropping resistor bolted to the chassis. We have our 33 ohm dial light shunt resistor across here, mounted to one side mounted to the dropping resistor, and then the other side mounted to the terminal strip. And yes, this 25 watt resistor is a bit overkill, but when the dial light is functioning, then the dial light is going to take the brunt of the current flow. But if that dial light opens, then this resistor is going to have a greater requirement placed on it. So in that case, we'll need the bigger resistor. I just ran the wires around through to where they won't make contact with these hot resistors. Soldered them to my tube socket, tube plug, plugged it in the ballast resistor socket. Now, if somebody gets this down the road and wants to convert it back to a ballast tube, it'll be easy enough to do. Just unplug this and dismount all this, and you're ready to go. And now I turn it on and get nothing but a low-level hum out of the speaker. So what's wrong with it? All right, let's look at the B+ coming off the rectifier. Maybe, if I can find it, 166 volts. That seems kind of high. All right, let's move to the B+ coming out of the filter choke. 1 volt. That seems real low. Like we have an open filter choke, maybe? Alright, we're unplugged and measuring off the first filter capacitor. You can see it's slowly discharging. So that pretty much tells me this filter choke is wide open. So we're going to have to replace it or just substitute a power resistor for it. Well, you know, I first said that I thought this was a replacement based on the nature of which it was installed, and this more confirms it. It looks like somebody just took an old audio output transformer and wired the primary winding in as a choke, and here's our secondary that would have gone to the speaker. I don't know why this suddenly decided to open up. I guess maybe me pulling it out and moving it around, I guess it was probably on the verge of opening anyway, probably where the leads connect under here, and me just pulling on it to move it to mount these resistors caused it to open up, and now we got to find something else to put in its place. It's probably going to be another old output transformer. Okay, I went with a 330 ohm resistor. That's the value that gave me about the same B+ as what the choke gave me. And I had to add an extra filter capacitor across the input filter to cut the hum down a little bit. Now it's about what it was with the choke, and that's really about all I'm planning on doing with this. Put it back together and enjoy it for what it is.
Their services.
All right, 700 WLW, and we're connected to the piece of wire running outside the shop window.
Eggs, bread, Linda Ranch's ground beef, and much more. So when has got you covered. That's what neighbors do. Thinking of advertising in these trying times? Think about this. Radio reaches 92% of Americans looking for solutions. Let's take a care about this.
Got to remember, there's no AVC or nothing on these sets, so.
Stories now of people who are already trying to adapt and pivot and transition and say, well, what are the opportunities now? Because whenever there is disruption or disorder or chaos, some industries are.
Up and the other two followed us on that. We don't know what was wrong with it. I can tell you, they didn't know him like I did. They've gotten lost somewhere along. Oh, they were all Christians, but they've let their eyes loose, their focus.
It wasn't on the court, it was off the court.
He is no Dennis Rodman. He never will be. To hear me, symptoms.
In your own backyard.
Here is your help. Our only job is finding the right Medicare plan for your needs. The Medicare plan from the insurance company and
Alright, it's a little bit later in the night. WSM has decided to put in an appearance. You know, 910 is pretty much overpowering anything to the immediate left and right of it. Yeah, like I've already said, these TRF sets generally don't have very good selectivity.
For you, what they had against him, farewell. And so the soldiers, as it...
Berkman holds the bat right down on the knob. Saito with the pitch. Berkman
That's probably KMOX.
Ball one.
or call 1-888-CALL-FCC.
Listen, Nolan Ryan, we're living through some trying times.
Probably WOAI.
Importance of good health. American Standard Air hopes that you are safe and comfortable at home. But if you need us, we're here. Affordable comfort is essential to each and every Texan. Our independent dealers are prepared to serve you and your family's needs. We'll get through this
1200. Now we're fixing to move into 1390 territory.
Some really nice stories about businesses doing good. Well, now iHeartRadio is broadcasting.
What I thought I'd hear and see.
Wear a properly fitted and maintained helmet and follow safety rules. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CBC.
For the most accurate health information, visit
That's 1450, and it pretty much
or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
ends us out.
This is Fox Sports 99.7 FM, W259BP Meridian, and 1450 AM, WYHL Meridian. With SRN News, I'm Keith. Proud to have these partners come together for such a great cause. Portions of the following program were pre-recorded. From the Belden's Automotive and Tire Studio, Belden's Automotive and Tires, your dealer alternative. This is News Radio 1200 WOAI, San Antonio, an iHeart radio station. Fox News, I'm Rich Dennison.
He went to the bend for the travel bend orbit, bringing you another message from God's Word. Let me stop. Getting mail here. Folks misspell my name.
Recovery from the virus. A clinical trial was so successful it was ended so all of the patients could get what Fauci calls a new standard of care. No new domestic cases. I'm Jan Johnson. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell today predicted a coming quarter.
Sunshine around and temperatures just a tad warmer than today in the lower 80s. Enjoy this though, because we're turning the heat up as we go into the weekend. Friday, upper 80s, 90s, Saturday and Sunday.
Right now, 73 SWS, 4 crossing volume, 0. President Trump said because of government's coronavirus social distancing guidelines.
I don't think this knob is on very accurately, but who cares?
A Harvard graduate, he's smart enough to know that he doesn't have to go out and necessarily prove the state.
Beginning on May 11th, the governor says manufacturing, construction, vehicle or vessel dealerships, professional services, and dog grooming boarding businesses can reopen. On May 20th, the governor says retail business can reopen. On May 25th, he says 10 people can gather, provided they do it right.
You know, we've all been cooped up. And you want to see at least, if you're us, one other couple and their kids. This is an opportunity to potentially get there. We want you to know that we think this is possible, but it's all contingent on all of us doing this right, on making sure that we don't see a spike in the virus.
He says that would include barbers, salons, cosmetology businesses, and similar services. I'm Suzanne Gonzalez.
We're looking now with 4,500
Probably WHAS.
more than 200.
Yeah, there's WSM, and yeah, this pointer is a little off. I ain't got no cigarettes either. Don't want any.
Reported items like late payments, collections, charge-offs. Radios for a moment with a student to a satellite radio are better because this is SRN News.
.com. Well, Harris Bank in it.
These organizations help provide important services to the community all year long.
With the coronavirus pandemic, listen, I think we use the word here.
of new plane. More details at srnnews.com. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Our storms are gone, and any lingering showers are going to clear out this evening. Temperatures will drop into the upper 50s by 10 p.m. The rest of the night comes with gradual clearing. The low temperature by morning will be 51 degrees. Our Thursdays will be mostly sunny and unseasonably cool. We will warm into the middle and upper 60s by noon. We'll touch 73 for the high temperature in the afternoon. I'm Storm Team 11 Chief Meteorologist Stephen Bowers for WMER 93.1 FM and 1390 AM. Good News Gospel Radio.
This weather update is brought to you by Old Town Family Pharmacy, 2024th Avenue, Meridian.
WMER 93.1 FM, 1390 AM, your hometown Good News Gospel Radio in Meridian, Mississippi.